from the heart of Dubai, where tomorrow is being built today, to the world. Welcome to the CTO Show with Mehmet. Here, we redefine technology and reimagine possibilities. With Mehmet, delve into the riveting realms of AI, cybersecurity, and digital technology. Experience the thrilling highs and lows of startups. Immerse yourself in the spirit of entrepreneurship and witness the future of business innovation being written in real time. Now, without further ado, let's tune in and explore the future.
Hello and welcome back to an episode of the CTO Show with Mehmet. Today I'm very pleased. Joining me, two guests. And this is, one of the moments that I usually like to have on the podcast. So I have with me the team from Acronis. I have Gerald Beuchelt and I have Subu Rao. And as the audience know, I don't like to spend much time on the intros. I keep it to my guests. Quickly, Gerald, like a little bit about you, your journey and what you're currently up to. And then I will move to you, Subu. Subu, by the way, his second time with me on the podcast. So welcome back, Subu. So Gerald, I'll start with you.
Thank you so much, Mehmet. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate this. My name is Gerald Beuchelt. It's like I am the Chief Information Security Officer for Acronis. I joined the company earlier this year. It's like actually at the beginning of the year, taking ownership of the overall security as well as corporate IT responsibilities at the company. I've been doing this CISO role for, oh my gosh, it's like close to 14 years at this point in time in various kind of companies. It's been a pleasure and an honor. It's like to be called to serve here at Acronis. I think what's very interesting about what we're doing here is that it's very close to security. It's like what we're doing is very close to what I'm generally interested in. So from that perspective, it's wonderful to be able to work with such a great crowd of people and a wonderful ecosystem to really look at how we can bring security, availability, backup, disaster recoverability, et cetera, to everyone. It's like, because if you look at this in the past, it's been very much a difficult enterprise. And what I loved really about Acronis and coming here is to see that we have a mission to bring this to everybody and democratize it.
Great. And thank you again, Gerald, for being here today. So you've been here before, but, tell us what you're currently doing at Acronis.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for having me. And yes, we have spoken before. And, as you have already captured some of my history in the previous episodes, I've got around about 15 years of cybersecurity experience. And similar to Gerald, I joined Acronis this year. And it's an absolutely fantastic company. It's gone so quickly. And they have a nice breadth of portfolio with regards to cybersecurity, data protection, and a very interesting proposition. And it's refreshing in a sense that I used to work for sort of cloud security and identity security providers, but this is more catering towards the MSP world. It's a different line of business, but a very interesting proposition, a much needed one. So yeah, happy to be here. And with regards to my role in Acronis, I am a senior manager doing cybersecurity solution strategy, especially focusing on cyber resilience.
Great. And welcome again, Subu. And, thank you very much for being here with us today. Now, the way I love to do it, is to frame things, right? So, go see sometimes they call the bird view, sometimes they call the 30,000 feet view, whatever you want to call it. So the big picture, Gerald, like I'll start with you from your perspective as a CISO, right? So we hear a lot. It's a hot topic, as we know. So what does the threat landscape looks like today? We hear that a lot. And what do you think businesses are struggling? And as a CISO, what do you think, like fellow CISOs in companies, what's keeping them awake at night, I would say?
Oh, there's so many things. It's like I don't even know where to start. So I think the general threat landscape is obviously evolving, but it's at the same time it's not there's not revolutionary change that we're currently seeing in many ways. It obviously always depends a little bit on the company, on your company. It depends a little bit on your vertical, on your geography. It's like what specific threats you're facing, and it's one of the things we're trying to make very clear in our cyber threat reports, which I really would recommend people take a look at. It's like where we really break it down by region, by geography, and by other things. How the various types of threats that we are seeing in the internet are actually working against regular industries, against all of us. When we look around, it's like particularly in the small and medium business space, it's like I think ransomware is one of those kind of like things that has been at the top of mind for pretty much everybody now, because it's becoming the standard kind of way of delivering malware and then executing payloads on victim systems in order to affect crime. It's like which includes theft of data, theft of information, theft of it's like monies, etc., etc. So what should be really on top of mind for everyone at this point in time is to ensure that we get first the basics right. Because even if you look around today, it's like you still see so many situations where the initial access, the initial vector of entering into a particular type of environment comes from avoidable mistakes. This is unpatched systems. This is very weak passwords, reused passwords. We've recently seen the Louvre issue is like where they had the Louvre as a password. It's like at least some time ago. We've published ourselves the Sidewinder attack, which was a nation state level attack against other nation states, which exploited a vulnerability that was more than 8 years old. So as you can imagine, it's like if you have issues with keeping systems alive, keeping keeping systems patched and up to date, both from a patching perspective as well as from a configuration perspective, you're really opening yourselves up to issues. There are other things that are really important. It's like if you look around, it's like then social engineering without initial exploitation of vulnerabilities is that still one of the number one concerns. And while we do have various types of solutions to protect ourselves against email threats and others, it's like at the end of the day, it's like it is really, really important to ensure that we also enable the human in the loop. It's like to be as proactive as possible. There's this horrible adage that I really abhor, which is like your employees or the humans are the weakest link in the chain. It's like, and I totally disagree with that. Untrained humans and uninformed humans are definitely a weak link that is a huge concern. But if you have an employee base, a user base that is getting regular security awareness training, who are alert and who are participating actively in trying to find issues, then that's probably one of your best defenses.
Great. So anything you want to add on this? Because I have a follow-up question to Gerald.
No, please go on.
Sure. Now, Gerald, like you mentioned a bunch of things which makes a lot of sense. And it looks like the things are getting complicated by the day. So, like, for example, the AI, right? So are you seeing it like as a more risk opportunity? Like, what's your point of view?
Well, AI in reality is here, right? It's like, and it has been here for a while. It's like we've been already starting to see that that the adversaries, like the criminals, have been using AI very successfully in creating new malware, in creating spear phishing attacks at scale, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like ignoring AI happens at your own peril. What I do think is that we have in IT in general and in security in particular a great opportunity right now to really start going above and beyond the basic tasks that we have been fighting with on a daily basis. I was talking about routine tasks such as patching, et cetera, et cetera. It's like vulnerability assessments, vulnerability scan assessments, et cetera, and those kind of things. Those are sometimes very labor-intensive tasks. They require specialized knowledge. They require people to go in and it's like scan large amounts of data, all of which can be done much more efficiently with appropriately trained agents. One of the things we really believe at Acronis and what we're building out right now is a comprehensive system which really leverages our long experience in AI in such a way that we are putting together agents, that we're putting together everything that is needed in order to further and further automate the SOC. At the end of the day, it's like the goal promised by probably everybody on the industry at this point in time is you'll have a fully autonomous SOC. It's like, I don't know really whether I want to have a fully autonomous SOC. There are certainly some situations where a fully automated AI agent could be and should be acting independently of human interactions. It's like their script, their excuse me, their situations where it's like it becomes very clear that certain actions need to be applied. But then there are others which are not, which are higher risk. And it's like I think the goal for making AI as useful as possible and as productive as possible is finding the right balance. On the one side, automating and it's like relying on AI capabilities as much as possible, but at the same time making sure that the risk implications are still being assessed by someone who's ultimately responsible for it, because you cannot sue an AI, at least not yet. And it's like I think that's really what it comes down to.
Right. You mentioned also, Gerald, something about in the threat, cyber state, espionage, all the things. From your perspective, and this is really a question that sometimes, I think people, they think like only certain regions, they will be, we are living, let's say, in X region, so we don't have to care because why these guys even will think about attacking us, right? In your opinion, is there a difference in geography, or is it like same globally, as in the US, as in Europe, as in the Middle East where I am based, as in APAC? What you can tell us about these regional nuances, if there are any?
Well, there's certainly differences in the region, right? It's like Western industrialized countries like the US or like Europe have fairly interesting and juicy targets from an industry perspective, from a capital perspective, et cetera, et cetera. So there's definitely a huge interest in being able to execute attacks against those kind of like targets. At the same time, it's like I would argue that especially those kind of countries have over the last couple of years significantly improved cyber defenses across the board. That doesn't mean that every company is there, but it's like there's definitely a significant an increase in awareness around security-related topics. Various regulations, both in the U.S. as well as in Europe, have contributed to that. There are actually now situations where you are required by law or regulation to provide or to maintain a certain level of security and report on that. So those kind of like activities have really hardened those kind of targets considerably, leaving some of the other regions in the world less well defended. And now we all know it's like that. You cannot have perfect security, but it's usually good enough to have a level of security that allows you to be better than others. If it's really, really hard to break into the house on the right side of the street, and the house on the left side of the street is like halfway open, is like has unsecured windows, guess what the burglar is going to do? It's like he's going to go to the house on the left side of the street, even if there's not quite as much money in there, or sorry, if it looks smaller. So I would say that everyone who is who owns information systems in some form or another, everyone who has data, has something that is valuable and that can be exploited for further attacks or for other activities. We've seen large botnets built out of home routers. Those are not high-value targets by themselves, but at the same time, it's like they're valuable tools for a cyber criminal to build a botnet and then it's like ultimately rent this out. Often enough, what comes along with an exploit like that is also a compromise of the local machine. This may include credential stealing. This may include access to sensitive accounts from individuals. So it's like the notion that it's like you're not really affected by it because you're in a different region or in a different vertical don't really apply. It's like there is, unfortunately, for every type of target, there is a criminal out there who's interested in you.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, like, and this analogy that you just did, Gerald, makes a lot of sense. Like, if you keep something open, so you're inviting literally people to come and break in. Now, in technology in general, and I think in cybersecurity in general, terms get used, people start to mix things up, and I'm talking here about cyber resilience, which people sometimes they think it's cybersecurity. Now, from the expert yourself, Gerald, I would like to hear, your breakdown of these two terms and why they are not the same.
Oh boy, it's like opinions divide, I would say. It's like
Right.
it's basically one of those areas where you really have sometimes marketeers, sometimes it's like thought leaders, sometimes just people it's like coming up with ideas and it's like then popularizing them, whether they make a lot of sense or not. I want to give you just a personal way of like how I think about those things.
Sure.
It's like cybersecurity really describes a discipline of security that is particularly involved with the information domain, right? So it's like we're applying security principles which date back to basically ancient times. It's like in terms of defense in depth, in terms of various other kind of things. It's like that are relevant, such as people, process, and technology. So all of those principles that we have learned from various types of security setups, such as military security and otherwise, are being applied to the information domain, which is separate from the regular world that we have around us. How that gets done and how that gets optimized with the kind of technologies that we deploy in the information domain, that is what I would call cybersecurity. So it's like that is really the application of the security principle of long established principles into the information domain. Cyber resilience is a term that has become popular. It's like, and what I typically associate with that, and I'm sure that I will have many detractors as I say this, but it's to me essentially the ability to fight through. So it's like, let's say you are under attack. Let's say there is an incident that is unfolding in some form or another in your environment. If you have built a program that implements solid cybersecurity principles, you should be able to have a high degree of cyber resilience during those attacks by employing multiple layers of defense, by having redundant systems, by having the ability to recover very quickly in case a system gets degraded or destroyed during an attack. So I think call it a discipline or call it the principles of cyber resilience would really look a little bit more aggressively at mitigating or like having appropriate plans in place to mitigate the impact of a event post-event. Does that make sense?
Absolutely makes sense. And again, when your definition of resiliency made a lot more sense to me because again, like when if you are, and cyber attacks are like war, right? So if you are, you know fighting in the battlefield, so the resilience is like how you go through that attack, right? And how far you can stand there. Now, some of the question for you, and I know like you work closely with your channel, like your partners and the MSPs. What's your take on cyber resilience and how you're seeing that resonating with MSPs, managed service providers, and enterprises alike?
Yeah, sure. Like Gerald mentioned earlier, the way I would sort of split cybersecurity and cyber resilience as equal to halves. So everything that you do up until an incident would all be cybersecurity. So that will be detect, protect, mitigate an incident. That will all be cybersecurity measures. And anything that you would do from an incident onwards, so let's assume the inevitable happens, the incident happens or the attack happens. How do you respond, recover, and adapt? So that would all be cyber resilience. And with regards to MSPs, it gives them a very unique sort of target area to sell their business. Because if you think about it, 5 seconds of downtime for a finance or a healthcare industry is not the same as 5 seconds of downtime for a logistics company. So service continuity and business continuity is extremely important for these businesses. And what MSPs have started doing is not just monetizing on the cybersecurity portion of things, which is to fortify the environment, work on cloud security, work on perimeter security, user security, device security, but also monetize on the resilience bit. So if the inevitable happens, how quickly can you bring you back to normalcy? So that's where I see the two sides of monetization techniques that MSPs are using at the moment. And again, like you mentioned earlier, it also depends on the exposure factor, which is literally the geography, right? So the exposure factor for downtime in Japan is maybe you're more prone to earthquakes. The one
Right.
in US, maybe you're more prone to hurricanes and tornadoes. Or if you want to avoid blackouts, you might want to avoid South Africa. So these are the exposure factor. So what MSPs have started doing is just going through these exposure factors, looking at risk assessment strategies. How prone are you for this risk, and what is your response strategy? And then doing business impact analysis. So let's say if you're down for 5 seconds, how do we quantify that? What does it mean, both in tangible sort of monetary loss as well as intangible brand reputation loss? So all of this combined could be a consultative sort of auditory package that MSPs have started leveraging, which used to be an offering from the large consulting companies like MBB. But even MSPs, now they've set up their small sort of lifestyle businesses wherein they do this auditory service. And for this, you don't need a SOC, you don't need a technical team, you just need the wisdom and the knowledge to perform this.
Right. Talking about MSPs, and Gerald, this question for you. So, like, if I want to flip the question a little bit, so where do you think, organization are failing short today, and what, managed service providers can do to address these shortcomings, in your opinion?
So this is specifically for cyber resilience.
Yes.
For cyber resilience, I think one of the key elements, and Subu was already mentioning that, is to have a good understanding of your own processes, of the crown jewels that you employ in those processes, and what the impact of losing them would look like. So basically, business impact analysis. It's like, this is, if you look at this from a theoretical perspective, a very complex and difficult exercise. This is not easy. Doing a full business impact analysis, doing a full crown jewel analysis of your environments takes a lot of effort, is usually very expensive and time consuming. But that's not really necessary. I think what's really important for businesses that do not necessarily have the capacity of hiring large consultant firms and implementing multi-month projects around this is to really understand and realize what is ultimately important in their day-to-day operations, right? It's like, what systems, what processes are critical for executing the mission or executing the business goals. And it's like, that is typically something that a head of IT or a good partner manager from a MSP will be able to answer. Once you have an understanding what those things are, you really need to start thinking about, it's like, what would happen if I lose this, or if it gets degraded, or if it gets completely destroyed. At that point in time, it really then turns the business impact analysis turns into disaster recovery planning, or business continuity planning, if it's more comprehensive, and goes into, what do we need to do in order to be able to have those kind of services that we identified as absolutely business critical back up and running as quickly as possible. And what is it going to cost us? So it's like, really, it's like defining for yourselves the recovery time objective, recovery point objective of those kind of like respective processes and systems, and then starting to implement this accordingly. What we offer from Acronis is a couple of really helpful and useful tools. We obviously have our various kind of like backup and restore capabilities. I want to emphasize this here. It's like restoration should be part of every backup product. We are testing this on a regular basis, and it's like I would also recommend everyone else test this. It's not guaranteed. It's like make sure that you have the exercises in place to really validate that you can restore your backups. But in the case of really time critical systems, it's like a simple restore may not be sufficient. So it's like you would really have to have some disaster recovery capabilities. And I think that, again, is something that we can offer from Acronis in a very nice way, where we do offer recovery from catastrophic failures into cloud-based kind of like operations on short notice, allowing customers to really have restoration times of, depending on the size of the system, of course, like an hour or less, in order to be able to get back up and running quickly. And I think
Right.
that is really understanding. It's like, number one, understanding what it is that you need, and then number two, having the correct kind of tools in place in order to drive this is really what makes the difference.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree with you, Gerald. Like, especially I can claim, also their business model also, and the way they try to target, their customers also as well. But this is, I want to ask maybe Subu here, because you work with MSPs also a lot. What do you think, one of their main things that they can start doing today, regarding, what Gerald has mentioned, and also like some opportunities maybe they have?
Sure. So the one thing, like Gerald mentioned earlier, would be data and asset classification, because not every piece of data, every piece of asset would require equal sets of security measures. So if you look at data and asset classification, it goes all the way from private, sensitive, confidential, top secret, public, proprietary. So there's lots of different data. So what MSPs can do is start working with their end customers to understand, what's the level of security that's required for each of these classifications, and then go through the business impact analysis, and then go through the risk assessment, and then look at their security measures, and then do some sort of a gap analysis to say, look, this is your current state, and this is your desired state, and what's the delta between these two? How do we move from your current state to a desired, more secure security posture? So that is another thing that MSPs could do quite easily without a lot of security muscle power or knowledge. But the other thing that I also say is now we've got AI, and it's opened up a huge market. So like Gerald mentioned earlier, Acronis is open to AI agents. So we already have our MCP server, which is the communication protocol, which enables agents to speak to Acronis. So that's made available for MSPs to sort of create and craft their own agents to interface with us, to talk with Acronis, and build their own sort of agentic AI toolkit. So it gives them a chance, a market that is still untapped, I would say, at least to a certain degree. So there is this early mover advantage, and I would encourage MSPs to look into this area.
Great. Now, Gerald, I'm gonna put you in a position. Imagine you joined a board, right? And you're advising them, right? So where do you think they should start with the whole best practices and frameworks that they should implement in their organization?
Well, it depends, as always, right? So it's like there is no singular blueprint. There is no singular silver bullet or whatever you want to call it. It's like, it's like I do those 3 steps and then I'm done with my security program. I think what's really, really important is to understand the overall objectives of the business and how security fits into this, right? It's like, generally speaking, most modern companies do rely in significant ways on their IT systems, on their information technology systems. So protecting those is going to be very critical. But there's a huge difference in terms of your sensitivity to this if you are I don't know, it's like a corner shop that is operating a cash register and some back office software versus say attorney's office versus a medical facility that actually has maybe even OT environments on premise that are serving patients. So really understanding your risk tolerance and your risk appetite, which you also should have in order to make sure that you can grow your business. So in understanding that corridor between risk tolerance on the one side and risk appetite on the other side is probably the first step to really come to terms with how you should start. The second step is obviously then it's like as I was saying, it's like you may be operating in regulated industries such as healthcare or so. Understanding what the legal framework looks like. Do you have specific obligations? Many companies, almost all companies, I would argue, are doing some form of business with Europe, and as such have already obligations under GDPR and other European regulations. Similar things are true for other parts of the world with respect to doing business with them and the applicable law. So understanding the regulatory environment and how that already affects what you need to do is very critical as well. And once you have those two things in place, your risk profile on the one side, as well as the regulatory requirements on the other side, you can start putting together a plan in terms of like how to implement this. By then, it's like you already know roughly what kind of controls you need to put in place, what kind of things, because there are tons of frameworks out there. I'm not advocating right now for this cybersecurity framework per se, or ISO, or any of the other ones. It's like all of those frameworks have their place and their time. They tend to be very useful for making sure that you're not forgetting something. But I also want to warn people, it's like not to start with a compliance framework, but instead start with the notion of it's like, how can I build a secure system? The compliance frameworks are going to be extremely useful to make sure that you're not forgetting something. But if you just go line by line in a compliance environment and like tick off the box, oh yeah, it's like I installed antivirus. Hooray, I'm done. Oh yeah, I installed a backup piece of software. Oh, okay, I'm done. Ultimately, it's like they're not going to do you any good. So it's like the goal here really is to start thinking about your environment, start thinking about what kind of like business environment you're in, match those things together, and then put together a plan. And I think MSPs and MSSPs or security professionals in general can really be very helpful in that, because it's like this is something we do on a day-to-day basis, and that is where we can come in as experts and really assist the business decision makers in terms of like making those decisions. And that's how it should be, because often enough, well, security is like, what do you approve? Security people, what do you approve for doing X, Y, or Z? The answer is always going to be it depends. It depends on how you want to run your business. So it's like finding that fine balance between what is needed on the one side and what can be compromised on the other side in order to drive the business is critical important.
It's reminded me, and what you mentioned, Gerald, we've seen it like even in areas outside the cybersecurity, in technology in general, where people they think, okay, for example, digital transformation, and I always had these discussions with CIOs and consultants and everything. Like, yeah, we moved to the cloud. That's it. We did the thing. So I think in cybersecurity it's the same thing, and it's not like a one-time thing. Now, because you mentioned about, and I'll not go ask about specific frameworks, as you said, because it depends. But and similar to what's happening with the AI, so cybersecurity, cyber resilience, I think it start to be more and more discussed in the board, and majority of the board members are non-technical. They are business people, right? It's not a loaded question per se, but I thought like I can merge it into one question. So translating these frameworks, so if someone like maybe, I would imagine a CISO, sorry, a C-level, board member sitting with another C-level board member in another company and say, hey, like we've implemented this framework. And the guy is like saying, okay, so how can I translate this into business language, right? So where the CISO can add value here, in your opinion, or into the organization, and this will also kind of relating on that. And we know this. People will say, hey, I don't have budget for this. Like, we have bunch of things coming. So how this discussion should go, Gerald, in your opinion, for any CISO who might be listening to us now?
The decision is like, just in general, should be driven by business needs and risks. It's like, and that's it. It's like there's security really enters the discussion only at a later time, to be honest with you. What I like to do is like really talk about how certain types of decision, whether you make them or don't make them, influence your risk profile for your company from various types of like angles. And that's really important. It really needs to be an enterprise risk management approach. I can go in and advocate for measures to make our company the safest company on the planet. It's like, that's going to cost a huge fortune. It's going to slow down innovation. It's going to make sales incredibly hard, but we're going to be a really secure company. Is that ultimately what our customers, our investors, and we as company want? Probably not. We want a good compromise that really allows you, on the one side, to achieve your business goals, which is, in Acronis' case, to be the most successful company when it comes to supplying IT environments to small and medium businesses and MSPs, as well as our corporate customers, to be commercially successful and to make money for our investors. That's what we want. And we understand that we can only do this if we have a very secure environment, because we are a security company. So, but it's like, there are trade-offs to be made, right? It's like, and it's like, the most extreme case is always, how do I secure a server? It's like, I shut it off, put it in a vault, lock it up, and put 50 guards around this, and make sure it never connects to any kind of network. That's a relatively secure system. It's not perfectly secure even then, but it's utterly useless. So it's like the goal here really then becomes, it's like really understanding and going through the grunt work of looking at the various types of assets you have, the various types of processes you have, and how their availability or non-availability or compromise would would ultimately affect your environment. And then based on that, it's like, devise the right kind of controls that allow you to effectively protect them to the extent that you need them to protect them. And that is really the right approach. It's like, it needs to be looked at from the perspective of risk to the business. And based on that, it's like the investment needed in order to do so. And then obviously the counterbalance is like, if I invest so and so much money into security, what am I not investing money in? What am I foregoing? And those kind of decisions cannot be made exclusively by security. Actually, I think they should never be made by a security team or a compliance team. But instead, it's like, security and compliance need to become the trusted advisors that help the business decision makers, the CEO, the board, to understand implications of going down one path or another, and then figuring out what the right approach is. If you're an early stage company and a market share and growth is most critical, you may want to compromise a little bit on security. It's like, that is a fair and valid decision. Because if you don't have a product or if you don't have a market share, it's like, then it doesn't really matter. It's like quite that much. It's like, if you're the securest company or not. At the same time, it's like, if you do have a large customer base, you want to make sure that you're not risking that business. So I was like, that kind of balance becomes important.
Very logical, I would say. So from your perspective, like, and your experience in the domain, like, anything you would advise, maybe, through MSPs or through the channel partner, for any frameworks, maybe any specific best practices that their customers can start with?
Sure, absolutely. So with regards to frameworks and compliance, I would always go back to this analogy, seatbelt analogy, okay? So think of compliance as seatbelts. So 20 years ago or 15 years ago, seatbelts were more sort of advisory. but now it's mandatory. There is no escape. Similarly, I see a trend wherein you've got compliance, which feels like advisory is getting more and more mandatory. For example, so there is GDPR in Europe, which is a mandatory compliance regulation, and HIPAA in the US is a mandatory regulation. And then we've got something called CRA, Cyber Resilience Act, that's also coming up. So it seems like the government regulations are becoming a bit more stringent. And then I would broadly sort of classify them into two versions. So one, which is mandated, and then the other ones, like Gerald mentioned, like frameworks, which is more just helping the company set up a security posture. So that would be ISO 27001, or in the case of AI, it would be ISO 42001, or the NIST frameworks. But if you look at it, if you peel these regulations, as Gerald mentioned, the underlying component gives you a sense of security baseline. It might have a different checkboxes in different orders, but it gets you up to a good posture. So in that sense, it's really good to go through one of these regulations. But the way I've seen MSP handle this is, a business, especially an SMB business, wouldn't want to go through the hassle of an ISO certification unless they really have to. Because let's say you want to do a government business, or you have a contract that you really want to win, then those certifications becomes mandatory. So what MSPs can do is specialize in some of these frameworks or regulations. It could be geography based, and just rinse and repeat. So once when you keep doing this again and again and go through the checklist and get your client certified, that in itself is a monetization strategy, right? So that is something that I would say. And the other thing that I would say with regards to risk is, like Gerald mentioned, there is lots of risk response strategies. So one is risk avoidance, simply not setting up a data center in South Africa to avoid blackouts, or US to avoid tornadoes. And then there is risk transfer. So you want to buy a cyber insurance wherein you don't care about the security measures, but you're happy to claim your losses from an insurance company. And then there is risk mitigation, which is where security companies like us, Acronis, come into play. And then there is risk acceptance. You simply accept the risk, because like Gerald mentioned, if the cost outweighs the benefit, then there is no point of having a security measure. So the entire data, let's say it's $10,000, and if you're spending $20,000 on the security product, then that makes no sense. So MSPs needs to methodically go through the risk response strategy and understand what would work for their end customers. So yeah, that's my way of looking into this.
Yeah, like maybe I'm not sure if it's a accurate analogy also. It's like when you want to order something from abroad, and the shipping cost is higher than the product itself if you want to get it, and then you do the compromise, like, yeah, or like, for example, you ask for a insurance policy for your car, and your car, like, I don't know, it's maybe 30 years old, and they give you a price. Maybe if you sell the car, you would get more money on that. So absolutely, these samples are like really it should resonate, I would say. Now, Gerald, you kept mentioning about Acronis and what you're currently doing, and back to this full story, the big picture between threats and AI and cyber resilience. Like, what's the forefront that Acronis get to the market to differentiate? Because, to be very frank with you, we hear, and you said, like, there's a marketing bubble about the whole thing. So what makes Acronis approach this whole thing in a different way?
I think what's really important is like we understand the threat landscape. We have the Acronis True Security team, which is really a research unit that analyzes very closely. It's like what the threat landscapes, specifically for smaller companies, specifically for MSPs, look like, and fine-tune essentially our strategy to meet those kind of things. It doesn't make a lot of sense for many of our customers to defend against some of the most arcane 0 days in OT systems that have been surfaced, it's like, or not surfaced, or what have you, because they don't have those systems. So why bother, right? So it's like, I think we've taken a very pragmatic and practical approach to bringing the best kind of cybersecurity that is relevant for our customers, for our partners, at an extreme cost advantage. So it's like, I think we're We're very scalable. We are already or have already had a lot of experience deploying AI, both in our development practices as well as in our products. We are offering a very comprehensive roadmap that includes AI capabilities for scaling. And I think that's really ultimately what it comes down to. It's like productivity of the employees, both at the at the partner level as well as the customer level, are critically important. And that is something where AI can be incredibly helpful. It's like if you are managing as an MSP today, maybe 250 or 300 endpoints per technician, you can scale this up with AI easily to 400 and more, 500 and more. And I think that goal is really what we're after. It's like to enable our customers and our partners to be much more productive with the kind of AI technologies we are providing, and as such, really contributing to the bottom line and in meaningful ways.
Right. So what you're seeing from your side, like what's resonating with your partners and in the market in general?
Sure. And also from my experience, I work for enterprise security for a while now. So if you look at resilience, it's built on several levels, right? So let's take a simple device. It starts with dual power supply. So that in itself is resilience. So if you plug out one power, it still works on the other one. So that's a circuit level resilience. And then you've got device level resilience, which is like HA pairs. They call it high availability pairs. You've got active standby setup. So if one fails, it automatically fails out to the other one. And then on the network level, traditionally we've used MPLS, we've used IP multicast, and there is SD-WAN, software-defined WAN, which automatically reroutes traffic to the working site. And then if you go one layer up, that's DNS. So if you have your, Mehmet.com, if your service in Dubai is down, you could literally host up another server in the US and the DNS will take care of it. So resilience could be built up in so many different levels. But what comes down to the MSPs and the end customers is the choice and the cost of it. And all of these sort of duplication techniques or the redundancy techniques are often really expensive, at least for the SMBs. And then you've got the standby unit, which basically just staying there and doing nothing and waiting for a failover or for an incident to happen. What's fundamentally different with Acronis is that we don't have resilience on a component or a product level, but on a solution level. So what I mean by that is that we literally protect servers and applications and the business in itself, which then fails over into Acronis cloud. So it's more sort of the technology is zoomed out to the business resilience as opposed to a product resilience. And that I see, and I've had like first-hand field feedback from the MSP saying that this is really refreshing. And it also offers an alternative for traditional resilience methods. And that's where I think we are getting really popular in the backup and the DR market, DR meaning disaster recovery.
Cool. And really, the conversation can go for hours and hours. It's always nice to also hear from the experts. And but before I leave you today, Gerald, and to like each one of you, like maybe final advice, thought that you would give, Gerald, from your side to fellow CISOs, and so I will ask you later to your MSP. So Gerald, I would start with you.
Yeah, I would say the one thing that's probably most important to me is engage with the business very aggressively and engage at a non-technical level, because that is what the business is about. The business is not about bits and bytes. The business is not about specific vulnerabilities, exploits, or particular defensive controls. The business is about like making things move forward. Understand what drives the business, understand what is supporting the business that you're in on the one side, and then develop plans that are cost effective in supporting those kind of like overall business goals. It's like, I think that is really ultimately the holy grail. And once you start really talking about with your peers and with your partners inside and outside the company about these types of topic in a language they can understand, instead of like referencing CVEs and other security vernacular that is completely arcane to anyone outside of our field, once you start doing this, it's like you'll see that they respect you much more as an equal partner and as a trusted advisor in this kind of field. You have to be really, to do that translation, going through risk as a common language is much easier than anything else, because that is something that people generally understand. And it definitely has helped me, and it's like I'm sure it would help everybody else as well.
Great, fantastic. Subu, what's your final advice, maybe to your audience? I would say the MSPs
Yeah,
and
what
the
I've been
partners.
telling what I've been telling my MSPs is to don't forget the basics. The absolute basics of cybersecurity is the CIA triad. So it's a triangle where you've got C for confidentiality, I for integrity, and A for availability. And you need all three of these to make a strong, robust security posture. There is tons of tools, and MSPs often they want the best of firewalls, the best of security solutions, the best of identity and access management, which all sort of falls into confidentiality and integrity. But availability is like the forgotten cousin. You need your services to be able to, be available in the first place. That's where resilience comes into place. And then if you look at the opposite of CIA, so confidentiality would be disclosure, integrity would be alteration, and availability would be disruption. So I say, look, be a CIA, don't be a dad.
Nice. It's a nice way how you have put it, Subu. Gerald, and Subu, thank you very, very much. Like I'm sure like people they can learn more about the latest and the greatest from Acronis going by to your website. I'm sure like they can reach out to someone and someone will get in touch with them. This was very important with Gerald and Subu. Gerald, if I want to wrap it up, what my takes from you today, especially with what you ended up with, and actually this is how we started the discussion about how cybersecurity and cyber resilience, which now we understand, the difference. It's like it's here, and we need to take care of it. And as executives, we need, as you said, to talk the business language. We need to let them understand why it's important. And also, one of the important things I think from this discussion today is about how it depends from industry to industry, and how you assess your own risks, and then you take the decision to invest what it matters. Like if I want to take it this. So what I took from you is like about, this opportunity now for MSPs, managed service providers, and resellers to change the game with the AI and all the things that are coming with the AI, how they can add the value there, how they can take this consultative approach also as well. And of course, utilize Acronis technology to offer, this full platform. As you mentioned, it's not like point solution, it's end-to-end cyber resilience. So thank you for sharing your thoughts with us today. I really enjoyed, and this is how I end my episode. This is for the audience. If you just discovered this podcast by luck, thank you for passing by. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did so, give me a favor, subscribe and share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you are one of the people who keeps coming again and again, thank you for the loyalty. Thank you for the support. Thank you for keeping the podcast this year, the whole 2025, in the top 200 Apple Podcast charts across multiple countries. So we keep jumping from one country to another each week. And this cannot happen without you. So thank you very much for the support. And as I say always, stay tuned for a new episode very soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Mehmet.
Thank you.
Hit that subscribe button, share the show with your tech-savvy friends and fellow entrepreneurs, and leave us a review on your favorite podcast app. Your support means the world to us.